Hi Libra, welcome to your June 2020 Astro Alchemy. It's Rena here. And so as the month begins, we have the Sun and Venus both in Gemini. And this for you is the ninth house. And the ninth house is a philosophical house. So there might be something going on with you that has something to do with rethinking. Well, with Venus, it's not so much thinking, it's evaluating. And the word value is in evaluate. So how much worth do you place on certain things in your life, your spiritual life, for instance? And of course, this can really relate to what type of career you have, what type of relationship you have. All of the things that are going on in life can be evaluated in a broad sort of way. Am I going in the right direction? Am I feeling spiritually fulfilled? Or am I feeling like I'm doing things for another reason? And, there might be value in that as well. Sometimes people don't necessarily like what they're doing professionally, but they have an end game, a goal in mind of like, I'm just going to try to make as much money in the next year, 6 months, whatever, and then I'm going to do X, Y, or Z. So Venus retrograde can kind of bring out that question about the bigger picture and your place in it. And also, Venus retrograde can be anything related to, I think advertising might even be ninth house. I'm not entirely sure, but publishing. So some kind of gain monetarily through publishing that eluded you in the past. If you have been involved in a relationship with somebody and it has a foreign connection, that person may come back into your life. Maybe you're even, maybe you travel for work and that old flame pops up, or somebody from the academic world, because Venus retrograde can bring someone back into your life that you were involved with romantically. Venus goes direct on the 25th of June. So that's when things start to get back to normal. Obviously, there's a shadow period after that as well, but I try not to get too into the weeds with that, because then you're talking so much of the year with these retrogrades that it's like superstitious. Okay, so another thing that is happening is that Mars is in Pisces for most of the month. Now, Pisces is your sixth house. So is there any connection there? Are you traveling for work? Mars can be very physical and, movement related. But other than that, Mars in the sixth could see some kind of conflict in the workplace. Whether, the sixth house could be the, co-workers. So something with them. Of course, Libra doesn't like to get into it with people, and you would prefer to always have a harmony in your environment. So that would probably not be something that you enjoy. This could be a competitive situation, or simply that you're working longer hours. Now, with what has happened with the shutdown, some people have been working from home, and maybe they go back into the workplace, and all of a sudden the power struggles are coming out because people were more autonomous and they don't want to go back to this little cubicle where they have to listen to a coworker and their nonsense. And I'm not joking. This is going to be very interesting to see how people get back to quote unquote normal, if they ever can. Because once you have a little bit a taste of freedom, it's hard to go back and deal with that again if you feel like, hey, why can't we just work from home all the time? Another thing that this can indicate is maybe, like I said, I was saying traveling for work, but maybe a more mobile type of a workplace where it's less stationary, flex time, working half of your time from home or what have you. And Mars in the sixth house can be even doing more exercise for your health. This is the house of health. So getting more physically active. I kind of make these blanket statements that if you applied them to any other group, whether it be gender or race or ethnicity, would be considered bigotry. But I wonder if you can have astrological bigotry. And my bigotry or my stereotypical statement or question would be, does the average Libra person like to exercise? Maybe you're motivated by wanting to look good, but other than that, I think Libra is a sign that doesn't like to get their hands dirty, doesn't like to necessarily do things that work up a sweat, because sweating is all icky and, yucky. And because you're ruled by Venus, just like Taurus, that sense of luxury, luxuriating and taking it easy. But I will say that if you are motivated, it probably would be because of vanity. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I mean just that wanting to look good. But you may be doing it for some reason, maybe just for the pure sake of your health, that you are moving more, maybe walking more or jogging or something like that. Okay. And then Mars goes into seventh house. Well, that's your opposite sign, Aries. Mars rules Aries. So Mars is going to be very feisty in Aries, to say the least. And in that seventh house, that can indicate some kind of conflict with relationships. However, this can also be some kind of mediation or a legal matter. So if this is spilling out from the workplace and it kind of, what's that word where it builds it, I can't think of that word. I just woke up, so my brain is still moving. Moving. My brain is still waking up. But when a situation gets exacerbated, I can't think of it, but I'm sure you know what I mean, where it ratchets up. In that case, you may need to call in the big guns to come and deal with a certain situation at work. And so the seventh house could be a lawsuit, or if there's a legal channel in your corporate structure or whatever it is, then it could be something along those lines. Or simply working with clients one-on-one in a very active way. Okay, I already talked about Venus. There's a lunar eclipse. This is the big thing about June, is that there's a lot going on here because we have two eclipses. And we actually also have one in July. So we're having very busy summer in the northern hemisphere. So the lunar eclipse is at 15 degrees of Sagittarius. Sagittarius for Libra is the third house. However, because we have an exact degree of this lunar eclipse, I can do my own crude calculations in my head and say, for some of you, this will occur in the second house. If you're born the last 14 degrees of Libra, from 16 degrees to 29 degrees of Libra, this will fall in your second house of earned income. And this could bring money coming to me, I see it as a deluge, because what is happening is if you have worked for something and there have been some kind of holdups or whatever it's been, then this kind of releases this. This is why when Venus goes retrograde, I often think about, is there some possibility that people will receive money that kind of was on hold for some reason, and now they get it. And it's like it was waiting for you. And I'm not saying that this is not money that you did not earn, but simply money that was held up. This can be a raise, but if it is a raise, I would say it's a very good raise. It's like you put in, yeah, with Mars in that 6th house, you could put in a lot of hours and maybe they even give you a bonus. And anything, even if this is not specifically money that you've earned yourself, but money that is coming to you, that is a possibility. So any kind of like, the 8th house is usually supposed to be money that you didn't earn or shared resources. But I would include the 2nd house in this based on my own personal experience with Jupiter in this house. I think that it can be broadened to mean other things. And so any kind of money that you receive that, benefits or what have you, that comes to you finally, that could be it. And maybe like for some who are retiring, this is indicative of this because the lunar eclipse can be like an ending. Now, one thing that can happen, like the grand finale. Now, one thing that can happen, sorry, I have the window open and that increases the likelihood that you'll hear noise. But it's just, it would be too hot not to. One thing about this lunar eclipse, or lunar eclipses in general, is if there is some situation, this can push it over the top. So let's say somebody, I'm taking the United States type of situation, who's eligible to retire at 62, but wants to get the maximum amount of Social Security, has been holding on to their job. But they also know that there is the likelihood that they will be cut because they're older and they cost more money to companies. So there's a lot going on at the same time. The lunar eclipse may eclipse out their main source of income, but perhaps they have money coming to them from the exit package, whatever they call that, and other things that are connected to retirement and maybe a pension, and so that's like this money just coming in, all at once. On the 18th, we have a Mercury retrograde at 14 degrees of Cancer. Because I have the exact degree at which Mercury goes retrograde, I can talk in a similar way as I did with the lunar eclipse about the first half of the sign of Libra and the second half. If you're born from 15 to 29 degrees of Cancer, this Mercury retrograde will occur in your 3rd house. The other ones, I'm sorry, it'll occur in your 9th house. For other people, this will be in the career sector. So let's just talk about the ones who have it in their 9th house. This can be, for instance, anything related to if you have a book contract or something and the contract is off. Mercury retrograde can be like some mistakes with contracts. So the person may have to redo something, reread something isn't quite right. If this is, again, I was talking about Gemini and the sun being in Gemini. There may be a time when you have both the sun, or I could say specifically Venus retrograde, along with Mercury retrograde in that same 9th house, depending on your personal chart. And that could indicate a real reevaluation on multi-levels related to your belief system, but also I would even say travel plans that have been kind of scrapped. And likewise, getting that opportunity to travel again. The problem, they say that you shouldn't travel during Mercury retrograde, but you have to sometimes. Maybe it's for work. So you might have to deal with passport issues and getting them either updated or corrected. In the 10th house, Mercury retrograde can be a misunderstanding with authority figures, rethinking your career. And this is what I wasn't really putting all the pieces together, but when I was talking about Venus retrograding in the 9th house, I was really alluding to that. What is it that you want to do? And now that I see that some people are having the Mercury retrograde in the 10th house, it makes perfect sense that that could be something you're rethinking. Anything, if you're trying to get a new job and things seem to be falling through, it could be Mercury retrograde. You're trying to get an interview and it's like playing phone tag or something like that. Again, it's temporary. Mercury goes direct the second week in July. On the 21st, we have a solar eclipse at 0 degrees of Cancer. Now this one, unless you're actually born on the 0 degree mark, so the first day of the sign of Libra in your particular year, this is going to fall in people's 9th houses. So there's a rebirth. And, one thing that I haven't been saying in some of these other readings, I guess it's not too bad because that's actually for July, is that we're having 2 new moons in Cancer, which is unusual. So there will be a regular new moon in Cancer happening on July 20th in your 10th house of career. This one will fall in the vast, vast majority of people's 9th house and could be a spiritual rebirth. Opportunities in the spiritual arena or in the academic world, which certainly some Libra people are a part of. Being an air sign, you may really enjoy that type of profession of being a professor, for instance. So this could have a theme. Some of you may be planning on living abroad, and this gives you multiple opportunities for that. On the 23rd, Neptune goes retrograde, and Neptune is in its own sign of Pisces. So in addition to Mars being in that 6th house, you've had Neptune here. That dovetails quite nicely with these philosophical themes, Libra. So even a spiritual profession, service to others may be something that you have been pursuing. And with Neptune retrograde, you may feel this sense of, am I on the right path for myself? Is this really who I am? Why would this be the case? Well, sometimes, and this could also involve health, okay? It's a very interesting thing because I'm kind of obsessed with, I've been obsessed with raw veganism for many years, but I'm not a raw vegan. So I'm one of those people, I just like to live vicariously through other people. And one of the things that has happened in recent years is that people who have been raw vegans have, for those who don't know, people who do not eat animal products, but they don't eat foods that are cooked. So just anything, over 108 degrees, 115, whatever the person's rules are about that. But one thing that has happened is that people have discovered that, they went into it sometimes for health reasons, and then they left it for health reasons. And what I have noticed is that a lot of these people tend to be very rigid in their viewpoint. It seems like to me from the outside looking in that they keep going to extremes. And Neptune retrograde can make you see your health or your diet in a different light, in a more realistic light, because with Neptune transiting your sixth house, you may have like very weird, unexplained health situations arise. Neptune has been in Pisces since 2012. Neptune can be about confusion and delusion because it is associated with Pisces. There can even be an emotional component or energetic component to the health issues. And it's obscured from the person because Neptune tends to cast a fog over things, and the person may not know why they are experiencing certain symptoms. And, it's funny, for a long time, I was hearing about ascension, and they were talking about ascension symptoms. And I always kind of had a chuckle about that, because it's like these things, I mean, it could be true, it could be 100% true, but it just seems like just about every, symptom that people complain about is considered an ascension symptom. So who knows? But anyway, something can be that you were deluded about or in the dark about is kind of more apparent to you, but it would have something to do with denial, or, like the inability to look at something and seeing it in a more realistic way. And then Venus goes direct on the 25th. So, like I said, it's a jam-packed month, and it's not going to go away in July. We're going to have another eclipse, and Mercury will go direct in July. And yeah, so that's what I have for you, Libra. I hope that you resonated with this. If you'd like a private reading, the link to my online order page is below. Thank you for listening. Take care. Bye.